Hi, everyone. Welcome to What Just Happened. Today, we welcome Suze Dowling, co-founder and chief business officer for Pattern Brands. Welcome, Suze. All right, let's get into this. I just want to welcome you, Suze. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So first, tell me about yourself, and then let's dive right into the situation in D2C.
So I'm Suze. I'm the co-founder of Pattern Brands. So we are a portfolio of 7 brands in the home goods space. So I'd say what's unique about us is that we're operated under a full kind of one team, one cap table model. So by that, I mean, we are just working across all 7 brands as one team and really like synergizing these shared services efforts. And prior to that, I ran a brand agency with my co-founders called Gin Lane. So I've been in the D2C space for the last 15 or so years. It's gone through obviously a crazy journey. The reason we started Pattern was actually very much rooted in the transformation that we saw going on in D2C, which was when we started Pattern 6+ years ago, was when we started working on it, launched it over 5 years ago. It was really because we saw this kind of crazy ride that D2C was on, but also a very unsustainable path where we saw that you were able to scale revenue to 9 figures, but most people weren't doing it profitably. In fact, most of the businesses out there had no path to profitability, and they were just buying customers and buying revenue, and that's not a sustainable solution. And so for us with Pattern, our perspective was, instead of scaling one brand to that amount, let's scale each brand to their optimum profitability and try and operate in a different way.
So you're setting the pattern. Oh, wait a minute.
Look at us over here.
Wait just a minute.
We came from a branding background. Who would have thought?
What do you know? Okay, so you're really talking about a good blueprint for others, blueprint, pattern. You're laying new groundwork. You're talking about growth at a reasonable price, throwing out the old playbook.
Yes, in many ways, the old playbook was a D2C playbook that had really been built on a SaaS model in many respects. We've come a long way in our understanding as an industry in the world of D2C, because the first go round, it was purely about cutting out the middleman. And it was about obviously passing those savings onto the consumer, which I'm all for. But I also think that it meant that product and business lines were created that didn't necessarily actually have margins to then be able to go beyond D2C. And that in itself can be challenging, because I am a really big believer in the power of connected commerce and omnichannel approach to things. To your point, it's about sustainable growth, it's about reasonable growth, and it's not just about vanity metrics, because I think so often people wanted to reach these revenue scales, but they weren't then looking at, what's my contribution margin? What am I actually doing, and am I actually making money? And also, what's the quality of my customer file? And I think those are things that if you want a business to be able to sustain in the long term, you need to be looking at. And really, you may have less revenue, but more profitability, and that builds a healthier, business that hopefully is here 5, 10, 15 years to come.
You're in the investment market. This sensible approach, how does that get received versus the sort of crazy vanity numbers and et cetera?
People these days are looking for this stronger foundation. When we're acquirers, but we're also operators. So it's something where, when we're looking at businesses, we're looking at, do they have the fundamentals to succeed? And I think any business owner should be looking at this. What's my gross margin picture? What's my unique IP? And importantly with D2C, look, the power of D2C, or as we coined it, we actually said DWC, so direct with consumer, is really that relationship with the consumer. I think that is really something that is so special and so precious, but also so valuable as you build your business. A lot has changed in the last 5 years. If you look at what we've gone through in the last 5 years, there was some businesses that obviously were very public in the fact that they didn't have a path to profitability. We then had the pandemic, which brought this intense shift towards e-commerce, and it really, I'd say, forced a lot of D2C brands to really adapt rapidly to meet this consumer demand, which was there. But then with that shift came even more challenges, and I think just even created more of a pressure chamber on higher acquisition costs, increased competition. I think it really showed us the need to be agile and resilient in that.
I'm so glad you said that, because I really feel like with the 15 years prior to doing this, you guys had amazing seats at a great show, and you saw the good, the bad, the ugly. and you had the benefit of being outside of it. You didn't have anything at stake, so to
Mhm.
speak. So you had so many learnings, what to do, what not to do, and what newness you can bring. All I want to stay focused on the consumer and that relationship. In the last 5 years, it got messy. It got really messy.
It's our job as owners, as operators, and as people who care about our consumer to meet them where they are. And I think this is where we're really sitting in this world of connected commerce. These lines between digital and physical channels, they're blurring. This is why an omni-channel approach is essential. Like I like to think of our D2C channels as, yes, that's our foundation, that's our cornerstone, but we're a connected ecosystem where I have specialty retailers, I have mass market retailers, I have select Amazon and digital marketplace presence. That's what we should be doing. It's meeting customers wherever they are, whether that's your web, social, retail shelves, pop-ups. It's not just a nice to have, it's a need to have. It's how we then think about these as this ecosystem, because I think otherwise for the consumer, it's a very disjointed experience. And so we need to really think about what is the role of each channel? What is our merchandising on each channel and how are we providing most value in that? But also what's our brand voice, how are we showing up, and how are we still having our brand shine through to build that longer term relationship that keeps customers interacting with the brand in a way that feels really natural and authentic. We as a brand would be remiss if we aren't also meeting the customer where they are. Look, the reality is, and this is something that I freely think about, is say one of our brands is a kitchen tools and accessories brand. So that's comprised of different silicon-based kitchen tools, essentially. I always like to think, okay, what is best for my customer and where they're going to meet me if they need one single spatula? Is a D2C experience actually what's best for them? Or are they going to pop on Amazon and search for spatula? Or are they going to walk into a grocery store and see something on an end cap and I want to be there to meet them there? But I also then want to think about my packaging experience, et cetera, to bring them back to D2C so that then when they're ready to perhaps expand across that, they're actually purchasing from us on D2C. And I think this again goes back to how do you think about this as an ecosystem and how do you think about the merchandising approach for that? Because if you do, I think there is a really powerful way to have D2C be your heart, but also to be able to show up really authentically in other channels so that you're not missing out on opportunity, but also so that you're really serving the customer and what makes the most sense for them based on the category that you're playing in, the AOV that you have, and the buying and purchasing decisions. Like I think another great example is, fragrance is notoriously a really hard category to sell online. It's less relevant for us. We have a small apothecary line in our candles, but it's also there's something about the tactility there where you want to sit there, you want to smell and see that and immerse yourself in that scent. That lends itself really well to a specialty and boutique environment because someone's going in and experiencing that. So again, I think this is where we can't just be binary in our thinking. This isn't just black and white of it's D2C or bust. It's how do we think about this as building the relationship with the consumer, understanding what their needs are, where they show up, and in doing so, then best serving them.
It's different than 5 years ago, right? It was D2C or bust.
Absolutely. Look, I think that this is the power of the pivot. Like I always say this as an entrepreneur, and I'm a crazy type A person at times. One of the biggest learnings I've had is just actually how pivot is actually driven by opportunities. Most of the time, it's not driven by a crisis. And look, if you think about us, we are master pivoters. We pivoted from a brand agency to incubating our own brands. COVID then hit, and we pivoted from incubating to acquiring brands because we weren't able to travel internationally and go to the factories. And over time, again, I'd say we were always very clear on what our end goal was, which was to create a portfolio of businesses that helped achieve our mission, which was to help our customer enjoy daily life at home. So for us, that mission has always been to celebrate the micro moments of your day and how to make them just a little bit better. I think the actual ways that you get there, that changes and evolves with time and learning, and it should, because it's also we're so much smarter every day. Like I feel so much smarter today than I did a week ago, than I did a month ago, let alone 5 years ago. And That's the beauty of being a business and a brand that also, we are able to flex and evolve as we gather more information and data.
How does the future look?
We really have embraced AI and looking at what AI can hold. We've embraced global teams and looking at how we can throw aside almost the assumptions that we each have when we come into building business and say, based on what we know today, what's the smartest way to do this? We're also having some exciting opportunities in retail, and that is exciting as just another opportunity to, again, continue to meet our customers where they are.
Would it be safe to say there's a focus on efficiencies?
Absolutely. It's funny, even coming from an agency background, we were incredibly efficient in how we operated, and we had developed what was our playbook for operating the agency. We took some of those learnings into operating Pattern, and we've then had a bunch more. But I think it absolutely, for any business, especially in the environment today, it's a real focus on profitability and the smartest way to drive that. And I think that's really about looking at every single way of working, assumption that you're bringing in, and questioning it and really saying, okay, what makes sense? And as we've done that over the years, we've realized there's a lot that we were doing just because it was almost the momentum of having done it previously. And there's actually something that's really freeing when you take a moment and say, hang on, like I'm actually creating the future. I'm writing this next chapter. What makes the most sense? And I always try and take those moments to reflect, probably every 6 months or so, and really say, okay, knowing what I know today, what does this change in how we shape our team, our ways of working, our product lines, and continue to grow and build from there.
Do you want to talk a little bit about AI? Can you talk about how that's infiltrated or you're
Yeah,
embracing it?
absolutely. I mean, look, for us, it's interesting. I'd say it's more on the internal operations side so far than it is on necessarily, how we're interacting with the customer itself, though I see a lot of exciting opportunities in both. I think we like to think of ourselves as just, there's no AI experts right now. We're all just explorers. And how do we continue to explore this landscape together? I think one of the areas we've really leaned on and are excited about is certainly in copy and creative output. That's been something where we actually set our team a little challenge at the beginning of this year that was our AI challenge for any team member to think about how to use AI in their workflow more innovatively. And really, it's been fun to see. We, for copy, really trained a lot of our voice models in a tool called Copy, which has been the best one we've found so far for that. We're, of course, using AI voiceovers and Midjourney and things like that on the creative side. And I think it's just one of those things where it gives your team a lot more bandwidth to be able to really expand where they're focusing their time and energy. And certainly for us with 7 brands, we're always looking for how do we get that multiplier effect? There's a lot of work to be done. The other thing is, certainly, I think there's some exciting stuff as you look at SEO, and especially for some of your Amazon listing optimizations as well. There's a few tools that we've been playing with that we've seen some great success with. And then I think also the other exciting area on the marketing front is really how we look at just AI's role in mixed media modeling and overall kind of incrementality forecasting. I think there's some interesting things that are certainly early at the moment, but if they're where they are today, I can only imagine where they'll be in 12 months' time. So I think it's an exciting time. I think the big thing with AI is it's almost so vast and it can be very overwhelming. And I think you don't want to get lost chasing shiny objects. I think that's one of the areas where it's important to still really take a moment and say, okay, what am I trying to achieve here? Why am I trying to achieve this? And not just get caught trying to chase every single new tool or system out there, because then you're going to be spreading to yourself too thin and not really focusing on the impact that it can have.
How do you feel about using AI for design?
There's a role for it there. It's something where our design and creative team very much are excited by that. This is where it is. Again, it's like the human and the technology need to work together. And I think it can really enhance the output, especially when you're thinking about just even like the volume of ad creative testing. So much of when you're looking at your paid social side of things is really all of your ad variant testing and making small little tweaks. And AI is very helpful for that. I think it's not quite there for at least our use cases when you look at more AI generated imagery itself. Like, I think it's come a long way. I think it still has a ways to go before it feels really on point. But I do think there's a lot of potential there. If I look at where we were, when we were in our agency days 10 years ago with photo shoots, to now we do everything in house and try and be pretty scrappy about it. But to like where we could be in 5 years' time with AI, I think there's a world of potential there. Our job is to really continue to be open, continue to have this sense of curiosity. And I think that about everything in life. I always say, anyone we've ever hired in our team is curious. That is one of the traits that is most important to me, because I think it shows an openness and willingness to learn, to know that none of us know everything. And I think it allows you to really collaborate as a team and learn from one another, learn from the industry at large, learn from the advancements that are happening, and hopefully do it in a low ego way. Because I think I've typically found that those that are curious have that real team mentality.
I feel like we did a great job. I thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Thank you for listening to What Just Happened. I'm Christine Russo. Thank you for listening to What Just Happened. I'm Christine Russo.